Thank you.
Hello and welcome if you're just joining us. You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV. Our guest this morning is Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi. And so let's talk a little bit about policy issues and what a Mudavadi presidency would look like. How, for instance, would you deal with the question of impunity in Kenya? You famously said that you would work to bring the trials of the National Criminal Court suspects back home. Would you still do that?
Yes, if we are to be realistic, as a nation, it does not do us any, it does not give us any pride to have citizens being tried away from the Kenyan soil. Now, there is a process that would have to be taken into account. And this means that it would have to be both diplomatic and legal to try and deal with this crisis. So my take on this is that it would be important to have a government that can be able to engage with the international community, engage even within the framework of the UN Security Council, so that there can be a deferral on this particular issue. And bearing in mind that we are going through a serious judicial reform process, then these issues can be handled back in Kenya. And this requires, as I said, both legal and diplomatic channels. So it is something I would still pursue.
President Kibaki has sent the Vice President a number of missions, and it flopped. Why do you think that can?
It does not. That does not mean that other attempts should be made. Let us face it. That if we can transit through this process successfully, based on the new constitution, and then bearing in mind that Kenya is also in a healing process, it's absolutely important that we reconcile ourselves to the situation that we are in, and based on the circumstances that we are coming from. So I believe that it is not wrong to make other attempts to have this matter resolved in a different way.
I'll pick you up on the issue of collective guilt, though, because around the same time that you talked about wanting a local tribunal, you also said that 40 million Kenyans were responsible for the 2007 post-election violence, and there's a huge outcry about that. How do you come to the conclusion that we all are guilty?
I think let's I get your point, but I want to be able to put it in the right context. When I was saying that, as these things were happening, there was somebody somewhere sending a hate message to another. There was another one seeing something happening and doing nothing about it. There was another one propagating a tribal position on some of these issues. And we all could see some of these things happening. But then at that time, maybe we did not act as we should have acted. That is, responsibly as a Kenyan people. So it is in that context that I said that there is the element of the national shame that emerged from that crisis in 2008, 2007. Now, that is the context in which I was putting this statement.
Let me quote what you said. To prosecute 4 people for the sins of 40 million people is preposterous. There is a difference between, say, receiving a text message propagating tribal hatred and deleting it or doing nothing about it, and going out and, say, arming, equipping people to kill each other, or hearing that a massacre is going on and then you're in a position of authority and you do nothing about it.
I think let's put it this way. When I talk of national guilt here, let's take it in the right context. I don't know how maybe I have the lack of words here, but what I'm trying to say is that as a nation, for instance, if, for instance, we had a situation where somebody just takes us to war without any justification, Maybe you create an occupation force and somebody goes in to invade a neighboring country for the sake of it, or for certain things. Then as a nation, we have to ask ourselves, have we done the right thing to allow that kind of process to take place? So it is in this context that I was saying that what becomes the national guilt and national shame is that collective position where we should have done better and we did not do so.
Okay, that is understood, but still, you say to prosecute 4 people for the sins of 40 million people, which suggests, you know, you know, which suggests that you don't believe these 4 people should be on trial.
I am not here to judge the 4 individuals, all right? But the question that brings out is this: are they the only ones? If indeed there's a problem, should they be the only ones? That is the bottom line.
But Mheshimiwa, you see, I'm not persuaded by, 1, your explanation, and 2, your stand on this whole matter. It seems to be flip-flopping. Looking back, you know, you were in the Orange Democratic Movement. That party took a particular position at different points with regard to the ICC. You are the deputy leader of that party. You were not outspoken at all on this matter of the ICC. I don't remember. Maybe you were internally or through other means, not reported. For you to come around when you launched your bid to play a different, to actually begin moving your position from what we knew you to hold, which was what was the ODM position, seems to me that you are playing to the gallery, to the audience, to the voters, to the electorate, when you began switching your positions to make it amenable and palatable to a constituency you wanted to appeal to.
No.
And secondly, you know that, of course, the mechanisms for returning these cases to Kenya have been exhausted. The only thing left is the Security Council saying, stop that trial. Nothing else can work. So why would we be, pulling the public's legs?
Now, let me just revisit my position on this matter. If I was part of the Serena process,
yes,
okay, and one of the things we lobbied for was a local mechanism. And if you go to the Hansard and look at the vote that I cast, I cast a vote for a local mechanism. So I have been absolutely consistent on this particular issue. At no time did I say that I was voting for this process to take place outside at The Hague. Now, the second issue that I want to state here, and I stated it earlier, is that this would be both a diplomatic and legal process. You've just affirmed it. The Security Council to seek a deferral. Now, how do you get to the Security Council? It is a diplomatic process.
You still think there is hope?
There is hope.
Especially when the cases are proceeding from 11th April, when we'll not even have got you into State House?
There's a process, because to engage at the Security Council, these are governments engaging, all right? And there are different mitigating factors at different times.
Okay. And then when you say that, of course, one cannot, we cannot incriminate the 4 suspects. But to say that, they're not the only ones, when we in this country, and we know that a lot of the others who committed or are suspected of committed these offenses have not been prosecuted, our own internal mechanisms have not moved at all. How is that consoling to the people who suffered this violence, when, in fact, the only attempt to bring impunity to an end, whether it's right or wrong, is also being frustrated by you? That is why that question. What is your commitment to ending impunity?
I think let's agree that our judicial process is reforming. And one of the issues is here that needs to come out, and maybe that is the clarity that you need, is that by talking about these 4 individuals, that does not mean that the victims of the madness that reigned at that time should not also have their justice and redress. I think it's absolutely essential. Now, all this brings to fore the fact that the process of investigation, the process of how the legal and judicial system moves on these particular issues is absolutely essential so that this matter can be brought to closure. But there must be justice and there must be fairness.
But what pressure are you applying for yourself in your position to ensure that this process actually goes ahead? The local suspects and there's justice for those people who lost. You're not as pronounced on that.
I think if you follow very carefully, we have made certain legal provisions in our country. We have changed the judicial process. We have brought in laws that have reformed the police system in this country. And clearly, those are the institutions that must now take up this mantle.
Now I want to go back to Parliament and talk about the Constitution and what Parliament has done to the Constitution in terms of laws to operationalize various articles in the Constitution. And Parliament has failed us miserably. And you are a member of Parliament. Why are you witnessing this thing happening?
How has it failed? I mean, let's be a little more specific.
Specifically, look at the Chapter 6 and the vetting of candidates. It looks like now anybody can be anything. Whereas the Constitution wanted to check about things to do with integrity, things to do with education. Now we are going back to a system where we used to do language tests. Again, what you used to do in the 70s and 60s. Because you say everybody can be. You don't need any qualification.
Well,
this is ridiculous.
You see here, the Constitution has not been tampered with. The legislation may be weak to buttress that.
Yes.
But in terms of the qualifications, for the presidential, the deputy, the governor, and the deputy, it's very clear that is spelled out. That is spelled out in the Constitution. Yes. So where there are issues are these other positions. Now, true, on that one I'll admit that the Parliament has flip-flopped on that particular issue. On the issue of integrity, I think all is not lost, because it's also a situation where the courts that are there can help in having the whole aspect of Chapter 6 properly interpreted.
But it's all about the ability of the leader and the commitment, proven commitment. When we look into your track record, people are not seeing the whip against corruption, against impunity. So people are saying Musalia is a soft, nice guy. He will get to office and it will be business as usual. That is really the challenge that you have to prove.
Saying that's why they want to make the president.
That make this guy president, life will go on, and that you are being supported by the forces of impunity and the cartels of corruption to continue business as usual.
I think
How do you answer this?
I think that is absolute nonsense. I think you don't try to judge somebody on the basis of those kind of allegations and presumptions, which are propaganda tools being used. I'm not in office as president yet for such an issue to come up. Secondly, what about the other people who are contesting? Let us be realistic.
But it applies across many of them.
I think the position here is this: that the whole issue of saying that somebody is going there to perpetuate impunity and so forth is outrageous. If you look at the issues that I stand for and what I have talked about here, where did I say that I'm seeking public office because I want to perpetuate impunity? That is outrageous. It's wrong. It's false. And it should be dismissed with the contempt it deserves.
Impunity, a viewer has sent a text. You cannot surely say that it's unfair to judge only 4. If you know others, why not name them? Secondly, if 5 people steal and maim and only 2 are caught, are you trying to say that we should not prosecute the 2?
No. I think very clearly that he's got it wrong. If somebody is guilty, or if somebody is going to be proven guilty, let that due process take place. Nobody's running away from that fact. Whether it is one person who is caught, if there were 10 and it's one person who is caught, but the evidence is made available, then that should be tackled. Secondly, we have also got to realize that as a public individual, as a public, and as an individual, when something is supposed to be investigated, let the due process be followed. The investigative agencies, I cannot just wake up and say Mr. X is a murderer.
Yes.
I mean, we have to be realistic here.
Yeah, but it's about leadership, oversight.
Let's not drag it
Yeah.
to that simplistic level. We must be prepared
Actually,
to know.
there's several people who are, are coming across with those sorts of questions. Say, for instance, Hon.DPM. Does it matter that more people responsible for the post-election violence have not been charged? So you're saying that it's simplistic, but as David also was saying, and you said yourself, women were raped, people were killed, people were maimed, and so the point, when you speak about the International Criminal Court, you seem to be, you come across as saying that justice really should not be served.
No. Please don't jump to such conclusions at all. I think justice must prevail, and there must be fairness in the process at arriving that just position. There's no compromise on that particular issue. So when I say that there are others, it is true that there are incidents in different parts of the country. But it would also be presumptuous for me to say that it is so and so and so and so. They are investigative bodies. Those bodies must bring out what they have. They have reports.
But we know that there have been reports, but there's been no action. And in fact, what you see, the irony of it is that the government has been telling the ICC, give us the evidence you have, we prosecute these people at home. Yet this evidence came from Kenya, from our own intelligence service. So it is the lack of political will that is actually our problem.
Well, put me in office, and I'll make sure that the investigative agencies do what they're supposed to do.
Right, okay. But I go back to Parliament. Parliament is in the process of passing a bill that a law that giving allowances and retirement benefits to various people, including the deputy president, the deputy prime minister, and the president, and all. Some people who have not even some titles not even in the constitution, and some of the money given is excessive. And yet we know we are short of money with the development government. What is the opposition on those bills, that particular one?
I think Parliament will make its decision on this matter. But let's face it, trying to maybe deal with a bill of that nature at this late hour may not be the best thing.
Are you going to vote for it or vote against it?
Well, I'll be in Parliament, and the debate will come up, and we'll make a decision.
Okay. You see, this is
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But that can't pass.
That's not acceptable.
I mean,
and this
you
is
are
why
asking.
you're
Asking
coming
about you.
across
You were here.
being indecisive.
You see,
This is in the public domain. You are aware of it. The bill is in Parliament. You can take a position. You can say, when we go back, I am going to vote against it or not.
Or what your position on it.
Can I tell you very plainly? Not too long ago, there was an attempt to raise allowances for parliamentarians.
Yes.
You remember that? And I stood out and I said, I do not agree with it.
So why can't you say that now?
You don't have to do this to
I don't think
you can actually support it and justify. The thing is,
no,
you as the leader
I think at this point in time, very clearly, to tell you the truth, very clearly at this point in time, it is not justifiable to have any additional packs and what have you being brought out to any legislators.
Okay, that
including
is okay. That is okay.
Whether it's the vice president, including myself, including anybody. It's not necessary.
The trouble is, Mheshimiwa, you as an individual may oppose it and think that way. But what effort do you make to ensure that it doesn't pass? Because people come and say, it's not me.
The effort we make is to talk to the members of parliament to turn down that particular bill.
Right.
Yeah.
We do hope that, that is something
we're
on time extended.
That is what I hope will happen.
We're on time
Once you
extended.
talk to them and they say no, then that's the way to go.
Okay, I want to get through this because, of course, it's a valid question. Jeff in Isaac in Embakasi, somebody called Jeff, both viewers, suggesting that you're in this race to force a runoff.
No. The same could be said for the other parties. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not about forcing a runoff. It's a democratic process. It's a process where everybody is allowed to compete in this country. So I'm not in this. Kenyans can decide if they want a runoff or not. by the way they vote. And at no point am I forcing any voter to vote in a particular way. I am seeking the votes of the Kenyan people to be president.
But of course, the announcement of your Amani coalition means that a runoff is more likely, doesn't it? Because the votes then are split 3 ways.
I do not want to make a prediction of that nature. I want to state very categorically that I am in the race, and I want the Kenyan people to support me so that I can win.
What's your budget? You have a budget for presidential campaign? Can you give a gist of
Let me tell you this. We are struggling. We are making every effort. We have a lot of volunteers coming on board. And we just have sufficient resources to make sure that we are able to sustain a good campaign.
What is your projection? How is it shaping? How is it so
What do you
far?
fancy your chances?
How are you rating your chances so far? I mean, it's just starting, but are the prospects good? And what will happen to you if you don't make it?
The prospects are good. I want to state very, very categorically. In fact, I want to state here, I'm not a third force. I'm an alternative.
What's the difference between a third force
In fact,
and
I
a
want to
No. This is very serious. This is an alternative force, okay? Not a third force, because once you say I'm a third force, you're already putting me as number 3. Okay, so I refuse to be tagged as a third force.
Really?
Yes, we are an alternative force.
Okay.
All right.
Remember, there is something that about you and all the other candidates. There's a section of Kenyans, and I see them on Twitter saying they're tired with the politicians who have been. You have been saying, Raila, for example, should go home. Messi is in now. People are saying, but you have been in here 25 years also. What is new? People are saying all of you should go home because what is to be expected from people who have been in government for 20 years?
But you see, at the end of the day, the Kenyan voter will make that decision. They should not deny us our opportunity to articulate our positions and to argue our case and to be persuasive. I mean, it's politics. Let them feel that way. And the ones that come forward, whether they're young or elderly and so forth, once you have met the constitutional requirement to enter politics, there's nothing wrong in you participating in that political process. And I would like to encourage the young people to come forward, because you have to try. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Let them come forward.
Mutuku in Kitui is actually supporting his position. He says, can people stand up? MM is a Kenyan, and it's not a must for him to support Raila. He has a right to run for office. Go, sir. You are sober-minded. So, of course, the people watching the program who, will vote for you. But others who, again, come back to the issue of indecision, lack strategy and advisors. He's lost the plot and fight even before it started. And that came from Lijodi in Nairobi. What would you say, given this sort of mixed, views about your style?
I think it is healthy. I think it is healthy that people have divergent positions. I would not expect a monolithic position about my candidacy and about my style or my approach to things. There are people who will appreciate it and there are others who will not. And that is what we have to respect.
Is all lost between you and Jubilee?
I think I'm moving ahead with the Amani coalition. And the other political players in the arena today are Kenyans, whether they are within the ODM realm or whether they are within the Jubilee realm. These are all Kenyans. And I want to state very clearly that there is no leader in this country, once Kenyans give them the opportunity, who will imagine that he or she can rule this country to the total exclusion of others. So let us also have an open mind, that sometimes we may have those differences of opinion, but We must be Kenyans first and
Are you,
foremost.
are you
Let
open,
me
are
ask
you
you-
open,
And be prepared.
We're out of time.
Let me
And
ask
be
you
prepared to
one
work with
question.
others.
are you, are you,
I want
are you
to ask a
open,
question.
Very quickly,
I want to ask
are you
time.
open to
I would like to ask a question about your role in the procurement of some cemetery in
Land.
some cemetery land in
at River?
at River.
I think I dealt with that thing very clearly, that at no time did I sanction that particular transaction. That matter was put forward to the investigators. They went through the investigation process. I also gave them my side of the story, and the matters are before court.
Okay.
And you never benefited at all.
No,
out of time.
no.
Also, the same
Not at
question
all.
I asked about whether you're through with Jubilee. Are you also through with CORD? Or you're open to engagement?
I'm in the race. I wish them the best. I hope they're wishing me the best in the Amani coalition. But I want to say that I respect them as worthy competitors, and let us move forward.
Is there any that you'd rather see in a runoff? Who would you rather face, CORD or Jubilee?
Whoever comes in the runoff, I will face
You're
off with them.
ready. All right then. Thank you very much. That's your final word. And that's all from Cheche this week. Many thanks to the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi. And we wish you the best in your presidential bid.